were talking about the Bill of Rights. We just hadn't quite finished this bit here. Um, there were claims made on its behalf, right? They're all supposed to be a great thing and all this, but the actual outcomes were it abolished the monarch's legal constitutional right to withhold royal assent, asserted Parliament's constitutional supremacy, which really you can't have when it comes to who's got supremacy, as Lysander Spooner said, it's either the government or the people. There's no third party. Um, so it's got to be the people. You can't have the government being supreme. The last thing that was on this page was after it seriously put the kibosh on the trial by jury, and we've got all this system now where you've got judges that come in who are supposed to be advisory, and then instead they dictate what goes on and direct the jury, tell the jury they can't really use their consciences. They've got to just follow the law and only judge the facts. The last part on this page is the Bill of Rights failed to do. It failed to remove the Roman Vatican rule over the City of London, which enabled continued Catholic or European influence over British and Empire Commonwealth banking and finance. That was really where England lost the battle. They lost their sovereignty when the Bill of Rights became accepted as legitimate, even though it's not legitimate. But as long as the majority of people think it is, England lost its sovereignty, and the people lost their right to govern themselves. But that has to be reasserted, otherwise the situation is not going to change. Now we come to another question: the treason of the Australian Constitution. This is a very controversial question because there are loads of people, very many people in Australia who are proud of the Constitution, the fact that we have our own Constitution, and they constantly refer to it and point out the things that the government is doing that are in contravention of the Constitution. But this unfortunately overlooks a couple of really telling points or principles. We already discovered before that a true constitution has to be written by the people. It institutes and guarantees the rule of law by providing for trial by jury and annulment by jury. It strictly limits and binds the actions of the administration within lawful boundaries, and it provides for removals or suspension of head of state or parliament for treason or gross malfeasance. Now, the Australian Constitution fails on a number of these things. It was created by a parliamentary act, in other words, by a government. There was an enabling act passed by the British Parliament, Queen Victoria's Parliament, which granted the Australian group, the constitutionalists, a right to establish the Australian Constitution. It asserted Parliament's constitutional supremacy over the people via the judicature, Section 71. Under Section 71, judicial power and courts. The judicial power of the Commonwealth shall be vested in a federal Supreme Court, to be called the High Court of Australia, and in such other federal courts as the Parliament creates, and in such other courts as it invests with federal jurisdiction. The High Court shall consist of a Chief Justice and so many other justices, not less than two, as the Parliament prescribes. So that section there is what undoes, it negates Section 128, which says that the Constitution can be altered by referendum. The supreme judicial power of the Commonwealth is in the High Court. So even and we've had referenda, for example, the referenda about whether local government local councils or local government should be recognised as a third tier of government. And each occasion, this was rejected, but it didn't prevent the Commonwealth and the states, allowing the states to introduce acts in their own courts, which permitted local councils to be created and to exert power or compulsion over the local populations. So that's a complete negation of the right of the people to have control of the constitution via referendum. They've just ignored that. And this section 71 is the real cause of that problem. Also, looking at further down on this page, it was voted into effect via a deceptive plebiscite, whereby people were not properly informed of the issues at stake. So what were those issues? Well, under Magna Carta, which is the English Constitution or the British Constitution, after England became Britain by adding the other countries in. Under Magna Carta, people are free to do whatever they like, as long as they don't infringe each other's rights. We've already sort of covered that. Under the Australian Constitution, as we can see here, authority over the people or power over the people was granted to a judicature and the judiciary. That is a negation of the freedoms and liberties that are protected by Magna Carta. Under Magna Carta, Article 39, nobody can be punished, detained, or have their property taken away, other than it's been decided by a jury of their peers. So that doesn't happen under Section 71. These are important issues. If the people of the time had been informed, they will actually, at the moment, under the Constitution that already exists, you're free to do whatever you like. You can form jurors when people are charged with something, and you can annul legislation if you think it's unjust. But under the new constitution, you won't have any of those powers at all. You'll just be being told what to do, and the federal government can create as many courts as it likes. If people were informed of that, maybe they wouldn't have voted for it. When you omit relevant information concerning a choice that you want to contract with people, well, that constitutes fraud. If you withhold relevant information, the people there didn't understand that. It wasn't explained to them that they were giving up by consenting to this. So that's a very, very serious problem. We'll come back to that as well, because it's also covered under Article 61. The other thing as well is that it can't lawfully bind succeeding generations. Just because a group of people 120 or 125 years ago agreed to a particular thing, how is that binding upon people born today? Yeah. It's not. It can't be. Not lawfully. We can't decide something and have that imposed upon future generations. That wouldn't be lawful. So how can it be lawful if it was done a few generations ago and somehow applies to us? So these are serious flaws about the Australian Constitution, and it's very difficult to get people to agree. That I'm expecting probably one or two questions about this. Normally there's one or two people who question it, but we'll see what happens at the end. When this is a picture of David Robinson. David Robinson was the one of the main people that moved towards undoing the harm that's been done. When Article 61 was invoked in 2001, David Robinson was one of these people who understood that, and he was advised by Elizabeth Bennet, who was the daughter of a High Court judge in Britain, very well versed in constitutional law. And between themselves, they worked out there's a means of placing government officials or people who claim to be government officials on notice if they make unlawful demands. And this is one of the things that will you come into. This is all talked about in the videos that I've got on YouTube, and there's a particular website. This one here, Magna Carta 1215. This is a top website in Australia, and you can see here with these got these headings across the top. This informs people of what Article 61 is about, what the Constitution is about, how to get these notices, how to fill them in, and advise people who make unlawful demands on us. For example, a number of us at the moment are combating demands from the electoral commissions, either the federal or the state ones, for not voting. We're being threatened with fines. So we challenge these people, say, where's your authority come from? Article 61 has been invoked. You don't actually have any authority. You're just another person. So we put them on notice. Now, of course, they continue to threaten us with violence by the police. If we don't, if you don't do what we say, we'll send you to court. And if you don't do what they say, well, the police will come round and take some of your property or cancel your driving license. And if you try to drive anywhere, we'll impound your car. All these type of things. So we have to fight against this, even though we can't always succeed. But we nevertheless do what we can to counteract these. And all this information is in this site, Magna Carta 1215. A lot of the videos that I've done on YouTube are there. There's lots of information from the Telegram, MC 1215 Knowledge Australia. That's on Telegram. This leads us back to this particular Article 61, the thing that started off the whole, and it provides the answer that we need. This little section here below the red talks about how the 5 and 20 barons shall proceed if some of them are unable to attend to any of their meetings or die or anything like that. But the bottom bit here in the yellow, it says, and this is the King speaking again, the royal we shall procure nothing from anyone, directly or indirectly, whereby any part of these concessions and liberties might be revoked or diminished. And if any such things has been procured, let it be void and null, and we shall never use it, personally or by another. So I'll ask a question of the viewers now. Can we think of anything that might have come into existence that diminishes or revokes any of these liberties and concessions that are granted under Magna Carta? Just been talking about it in the last few minutes. And the answer is, of course, the Australian Constitution. It removes or limits a lot of the concessions and liberties protected under Magna Carta, and it's therefore null and void. Now, they're supposed to never use it personally or by another. When they say by another, who could that be referring to? Could it possibly be a parliament or someone claiming to be a public servant?
A corporation.
Yeah, corporation. Yeah, corporation. Good answer. this is uh, this is a crucial document. This Article 61. Um, Now, of course, when you talk to people about this, or we talk to, I mean, we're mainly talking here to people who are sort of partly pretty well on board with what we're talking about, but a lot of other people will say, "Oh, no, it's been that's been revoked. It's been overwritten by new legislation and so on." Or the Pope annulled it the year after. King John asked the Pope to annul it, and he said, "Yeah, no problem." Um, or there were other versions of it, written statutory versions. The one that's on display in Parliament in Canberra is the 1297 statutory version. Doesn't have Article 61 in it. They didn't put that one in there because, well, obviously it points out that they're not legitimate. So these sort of arguments against Magna Carta can all be answered. People say, "Oh, King John, he only did that because he was under duress. He had a knife at his throat when he." Yes, he was under duress, the same as any other criminal. He might have been murdering and stealing from people, and when he was put called to account, of course, he was under duress. But he still had a choice, and he decided to abide by his coronation oath. The fact that he immediately tried to find ways out of that is another question. So this is the answer to the situation that we have in Australia at the moment. This article was invoked according to correct constitutional protocols on the 23rd of March 2001. So it's been in effect now for 25 years. And with the average person, although this information is available, the average person doesn't want to know about it. It's too difficult. It means I've got to actually go up against the government. Surely it's easier just to go along as long as I don't actually take everything off me personally. I don't, I'm prepared to put up with other people being coerced and bullied or even, dispossessed. This is an immoral attitude that a lot of people have got. We have to be prepared to stand and fight for what we know is true, what we can see with our eyes is true. So that's the question. We're all under instruction to follow this section in the red here, and whatever the implications are, we have to face that. Let's go on. So the question comes down to, do we want freedom or slavery? People say, "Oh, we're not under slavery, really." Well, really? I mean, if slaves are people that what we think of as slaves are people who were owned by other people, and they had 100% of their labor was taken from them for the benefit of the other person. They were just doled out with food or whatever. There was enough to keep them alive. They just did enough work to keep the whip from being laid across their backs. Yeah, that's 100% slavery. But we're paying 60, 70% of our income in taxes. At what level do we decide that it's slavery? Some people regard 10% as slavery. Are we going to wait until it's 90%, until there's no food in the shops, before we say, no, we don't want to be slaves anymore? Or we can opt for freedom. We understand our power, which is the lawful power that was given to us by Magna Carta. We learn the truth of how to take action from the websites and the notices that, and we work to inform other people of the same thing, and we create the world we want to live in. There's no way around it. If we decide I'm not going to do anything about it. It's too hard. I'm just going to pretend it's not happening. Um, you can't evade reality like that. We'll still end up in a worse situation, and so will our children. So we've had a few different sort of actions that have been taking place. We had these information sheets that were sent to the here, let's go forward here. Questions and information for police officers. These were sent to every police station in Australia. And the same one for council employees. When this thing about the police ones, we sent that to them. This is the oath basically the oath that constables swear. Their name. I do swear that I will well and truly serve our sovereign Lord the King, his heirs and successors according to law as a police officer, without favour or affection, malice or ill will, until I am legally discharged, and that I will cause His Majesty's peace to be kept and preserved, and that I will prevent to the best of my power all offences against that peace. Well, were they doing that when they were beating people up for not wearing masks? Is that preserving the King's peace? They're just not honouring their oaths at all. They're just taking orders from corporations that have unlawfully, illegally asserted and usurped the Crown power and authority. So that's what we're up against. A group of people that have sworn. The constables are the ones that keep everything going. If they did their job and arrested the people who were giving them their unlawful orders, a lot of this would go away. But well, we just have to keep working, and that's all we can do. Keep telling the truth and keep standing up for it. So that's basically that's basically where the presentation ends at this point. Any questions that anybody's got? Let's have a question and answer session if anybody wants.
Questions?
Yeah, it's not so much a question, it's just a bit of a thought process. Thank you very much for your presentation. A lot of great information in there that I personally, haven't been presented with before. Obviously by its very nature, it's quite wordy, it's quite dry. But, I understand the, inherent sort of, goodwill that sits within all of that. The stumbling block with all of this moving forward from my point of view is that, we've got a population and sort of the psychological cross-section of that population. Let's just say arbitrarily, that 70 or 80% of people are, fundamentally, good-natured, good-willed, honest, kind, decent, honour their word, blah, blah, blah. And then we've got, 10 or 20 or 30% of people who have psychopathology, and these are the people that rise to the top. Because that's the nature of power. It's not so much that power corrupts absolutely. It's that corrupt people are attracted to power. So this all works. All of this works assuming everyone's on this even killed psychologically, but we know that's not the case. All this stuff about the King here, one of his best mates was Jimmy Savile. I mean, who are we kidding? This is what we're up against. So
yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. That's definitely true. If you want to add more? Yep.
No, that'll do. Someone else can.
Yeah, of course. We realise all these things it's a monumental task because this has been allowed to go on for 800 years. And of course, the amount of misinformation and the conditioning that people have been given is uh, is tremendous. We may not. I mean, I certainly don't expect to live to see these changes happen. It may take decades or even like hundreds of years. When you think about the history of the human race, um, since recorded history, we've had, like you say, uh, every civilization has basically been run by psychopaths. Like they rise to the top. There's a power node or structure or a hub, and the people who are interested in, having a good lifestyle without working for it or by enjoying power over other people, gravitate to those things. And in that sense, it was a miracle, really, that Magna Carta was ever written. But it is there, and it upholds natural law. Now, obviously, there has to be, for us to remove these people from their positions where they're destroying people's lives, that has to change. And the best method of doing that that's been devised so far is the trial by jury system. If you have the trial by jury system properly installed, it wouldn't matter what legislation was passed. The jury could just say, no, I'm not interested in that. No, we're not going to convict on that. That's the real key to it.
Ruling out the existence of, the bribery, blackmail, and threats against life and the threats against your children's life. This is the way the world is run.
Yeah. And there always will be people like that, but at some point we either stand against it or we don't, and we just hope. Oh, I hope it won't be too bad for my children. It'll be worse for them than for me, obviously. Um, Sometimes it has to be done. There are certain things that you have to stand for. People don't stand up against these things, and you wind up with wars going on. I mean, look at what happened in the 1930s. People knew that that was an evil regime that was rising. But, some people tried to warn against it, but everybody just didn't want to do anything about it. Eventually, they wound up having to confront it, and we're dodging bombs and bullets. At the moment, it's just a battle of words, and we should be engaging in that. Words are more powerful. Words and ideas are more powerful than bombs and bullets in the long run. And that's what I'm urging that we do, is to find out the law and let these people know when they make unlawful demands, this isn't right. We should abstain from voting in things. If we don't have the power individually to order somebody else around and tell them what to do, how can we possibly bestow that power on somebody else through a plebiscite? It's not logically possible, is it? So that's one thing where we could stand up and we could say, and we get fined, $50 or $20 for not doing that. I'd rather do that than to just say, oh, well, I'm just going to go like, if, you've got to vote for somebody. No, you don't have to vote for anybody. Imagine if 60 or 70% of the people refused to vote, and when they got their fines, refused to pay them. What effect would that have? But even just paying the fines and having, 60 or 70% of people saying, I don't subscribe to this fraud. Now there's only a few of us at the moment, but as things get worse, those numbers will grow. And you only need to be around about 10 to 20% of people is enough to start influencing others to think, well, maybe there's something in this, these other guys are standing up. Maybe it's time I stood up. Someone's got to do it. And it's up to each individual whether they want to take part in that. All I'm doing is just urging people to learn what the actual law is. The law is the Magna Carta. It's never been revoked. When people say, that's been revoked. Well, yeah, by whom and when? Under what authority was that revoked? It's never been revoked. It's still there. So that's the essence of the nuts and bolts of what I'm about, and what other people who understand about Article 61 and about natural law. These things all tie in together, and it's a question of when I first heard of it, I thought, well, what can I do? I was a guy in my mid-70s. I thought, well, what can I do? Well, I thought, well, I can produce a video, and start telling people about these things. I can learn more about it, and communicate with other people who also understand that things aren't right. So anyway, that's a bit of a lengthy answer to your question, but that's the way.
Thank
You
you.
can educate. The most important thing is we have to educate people.
That's right.
As Mark Passio would say, the end result when you listen to his 9 hours is the word no in two different spellings, N-O and K-N-O-W.
Yeah.
So you have to know, and then you have to be able to stand and say no. So as he puts it, the 3 steps are knowledge, understanding, and action. So you've got to get the knowledge. And so for those of us who might be ahead, you've got to share the knowledge. You've got to understand what's going on and the meaning of the things that you've learned. So understand the interaction of all the different characteristics. And then you've got to be willing to actually do something about it. It's no good having head knowledge and no guts.
Well, that's exactly right. I mean, people say knowledge is power, but that's not exactly true, is it? You have to do something with it.
John, can I interrupt for a second?
Sure.
Can you stop sharing your screen, because we're still having voice going in and
out? Beg pardon, I forgot about that.
That might actually help produce a bit more bandwidth.
You've got 6.5 minutes before it'll shut down. Just so you know.
Okay, well, I think I've probably said enough. I don't know if anybody else wants to add anything, but
yeah, I want to make a comment about referendums and councils. That, as far as I understand, is that councils can make state government can make laws, but as long as it doesn't is not inconsistent with the Commonwealth Constitution. So therefore, councils can't be a third-tier government. And then I went and picked up the latest hand pocket constitution the other day, and there is no mention of councils or third-tier governments in that constitution.
That's absolutely correct, because it is in opposition or conflict with the federal law.
Yeah.
I mean,
and the other thing was too, there was I can't find his name. It's in my phone, but there was a former Supreme Court judge in Queensland stated that corporations has no control over the living. Well, we've got a corporation government and a corporation council.
Yes. I mean, that's exactly correct. The corporation can't be government. A corporation only can act by contract. But of course, when you go into court and argue this, if you end up in court, they'll just ride roughshod over you. The only thing you can say is, are you threatening? You haven't established you have authority over me. Are you threatening me with violence?
Mm.
Get them to admit it.
You got to know.
Threatening me with violence, and if that's what you're doing, that's a criminal act.
Mm. Yeah, well,
so it's been recorded, a file's been created, and eventually, one day, hopefully, you or your descendants to whom you bequeath your ill-gotten gains will have to answer for that. Yeah. We often say to them in the covering letters, you may think that this is not going to change during your lifetime, and that may be true, but if you're gaining personal wealth and from criminal activity, later on, your descendants to whom you've bequeathed all this might have to go into court could well have to go into court and defend against charges that their possessions are the proceeds of crime and they could be dispossessed. That would be your legacy to them. And, knowing what type of person you are would depend on how you would react to that. That's all you can do with these people. I mean, they've got the guns to point at us, but if things got really, really bad, the people wouldn't need guns. There's enough cricket bats and star pickets in Australia to deal with these people if things get really that bad. Yeah. So obviously you don't want to be talking like that in public, because obviously, he's a sovereign citizen. He's plotting to assassinate the government. But we're not doing that. We're just speaking. We're speaking the truth, and that's what you can do. That's all we can do at the moment. And sometimes they do back off. And in the videos that I did, I've got them up on YouTube, nearly 100 videos now. There's cases in there where I was hassled by a couple of the 3-letter agencies, and they left me alone when I put these notices on them. Now I don't know whether that was because there was a change of policy, or because they thought, this guy is, if we bring him into court, it's going to open a can of worms that we don't want opened. They'll never send you a letter saying you've done well. Thank you you've caught us out, and they never say such a thing. They just go quiet and leave you alone. And it does happen with some cases. But at the time, I remember it was very stressful. I thought, well, what if they decide to go all the way, and I end up with a 5-figure fine that I can't pay. On the other hand, it's also a law that you can't go to jail for a civil debt, but you can certainly have your life ruined. Yeah.
There's a saying that if the price is not your life, then you're for sale.
That's a good one. I haven't heard that before.
So you need to work out that if you will back off at some stage, then you're not committed to the fact that you're in the right.
Yeah. Well,
I've thought a lot
about that over the years. Thought a lot about that. And perhaps it's an advantage for me that I'm, in my later years. I have, if it came to that, I wouldn't be missing out on too many years or such a large proportion of my life as a younger person might.
It's just about to shut down.
That's one of the things that's motivated me. I thought, well, look, you can stand up because you haven't got as much to lose as some people.
Yeah. We're just about to lose you. On Morris's behalf, I'd like to thank you for the presentation that you've done. Very good presentation.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure. I hope it was enjoyable and informative.
Yeah. We appreciate your support and education.
Okay. Yeah, I'll do the best I can. I'm aware of my failings.